I have a master's degree in business administration, and I learned something very important on the first day of my program. I was enrolled in a course called organizational behavior, which was taught by somebody named Dr. Lambert, who taught me a bunch of things about human behavior. The first lesson that he gave us was to ask everybody if they would be willing to give him their keys. I was sitting on the front row and I had my work keys attached to my backpack, and so I unclipped them and I said, I have my work keys right here. He grabs them, he was like, this is great, and he runs out the room. Everybody is confused. Even the girl that was coming in, she was late. She looks at everybody, she says, was that our professor? Everybody was like, yeah. She was like, he was just running down the hall, and everybody starts laughing. Well, he comes back and he looks at me, he says, now why would you give me your keys? I said, because you asked for them. He said, but if somebody else that was walking down the road had asked you for your keys, would you have handed them your keys? I said, no. And he said, well, why would you give me your keys? Well, you're our professor. And he says, but what makes me different than somebody that is walking by? I said, well, we trust you. And he's like, well, why would you trust me? Because, well, you are our professor and we trust that you are going to give us a good lesson. We don't expect you to run off with our keys and not come back. He said that is basically how people perceive trust and authority. It stuck with me because I didn't realize up until that moment that I did tend to give trust in people who had authority or perceived authority. I think it's really relevant to all kinds of things, because even when it comes to politics, when it comes to who we trust our kids with everything, just because they are somebody who may possibly have some kind of authority of certain things, it does not mean that you should blindly trust them, because all in all, he could have been a stranger who came up into our classroom and was like, hey, you got keys? And I would have been like, hey, here's my work keys. And he could have wandered off and I would have never known that that was our professor. Never met him. It's a really good lesson. I think it's worth sharing. And I was thinking about it, so I thought that I would share it with everybody else, because it was one of the most important lessons that I learned throughout my master's program, and probably in general about human behavior. So just keep that in mind when you start giving authority your trust, because it is needing to be earned.